On the open highway, high beams in your mirror feel like a language you were never taught. Are they telling you to speed up, slow down, pull over, be afraid? These 5 allegedly true accounts came to me with late-night timestamps and shaky dashcam clips, and they all started the same way. A white glare filling the rearview, a ribcage tightening around a steering wheel, and a voice in your head that says keep driving, keep breathing, keep your doors locked. First story came from Alyssa, a nursing student making a 6-hour overnight run along I-80 to get home before morning labs. It was 2:27 a.m., snow spitting sideways, coffee burned down to mud in a gas station cup. Somewhere past mile marker 214, a dark pickup glided up behind her and settled so close the entire back window went white. It flashed once, twice, and then held the beams steady, so bright she had to tilt the mirror away and drive by the ghost of the road. When Alyssa eased right to let it pass, the truck eased with her. When she nudged left, it drifted left, too, as if the driver were studying her through the light. The exit for a 24-hour stop arrived like a life ring. She signaled at the last second and coasted under the canopy with the pump island lit cold and blue. The pickup followed, idled behind her, and let the high beams pour through her cabin like an X-ray. She kept the doors locked, hands at 10 and 2 though the car was in park. A man in a tan cap stepped out and started toward her hood with one hand raised. The station attendant inside, a woman in a red vest, leaned halfway out the door and shook her head hard and slow, as if she were watching a movie she'd already seen. Alyssa cracked her window an inch. The man said, "Pop the trunk, your latch is loose, hurry." The words were wrong in her ear. The woman in red barked, "Don't," and lifted a phone. The man's smile wrinkled into a frown, and he backed away to his truck and killed the beams. In the sudden dim, Alyssa saw her own face in the glass, small and pale and confused. Sheriff's lights bloomed against wet asphalt 3 minutes later. The pickup was still there but idling toward the far exit. Deputies boxed it and walked over. The station's outside camera caught the way his shoulders set. He told them he'd seen something dragging. Under Alyssa's rear bumper they found scuffed plastic and a snapped fastener, but also something else, something the deputy removed and bagged without describing to her until morning. A foreign piece attached near the plate that, in his words, wasn't supposed to be on any car. The man in the cap left in another cruiser. Alyssa's taillight got a temporary tape job and a quiet escort back to the interstate. She wrote later that the worst part wasn't the chase. It was the moment she realized the message the beams carried depended on the messenger. Help and harm look the same in a mirror. She still drives nights for clinicals. She still pulls under the brightest lights she can find. Second story came from Mateo, moving his little life from Portland to Sacramento in a rented cargo van after a lease fell through. He left late to miss traffic and found only fog and the kind of silence that makes road signs sound loud. South of Cottage Grove at 1:53 a.m., a semi settled in behind him with its high beams on like suns. Every bump made the van yaw. Every mile wind burned his patience. He tapped his brakes, flashed hazards, and the lights only pressed closer. He took the next rest area exit, figuring he'd let the truck thunder past and drink water under the sodium lamps. The semi followed into the loop and rolled to a slow stop angled 2 spaces behind. Mateo felt pinned. Then, before he could put the van back in drive, a knock came at his window that rattled his bones. The trucker stood there in a flannel jacket, gray beard caught in the light like wire. He kept his hands spread and said, "Not here to spook you. You okay? Your back lock's been twitching open and shut like someone's inside." Mateo laughed a small wrong laugh and said, "That's just the latch." The trucker shook his head once, like he was answering a question Mateo hadn't asked. From the van's rear came a sound too small to be a person and too heavy to be nothing. Something brushing cardboard and a strap creaking in the cool. Mateo felt heat crawl up his neck. He thumbed 911 without looking and whispered that he thought someone was in his cargo. The trucker made a circle with his hand, big rig style, and parked so his headlights bathed the van's doors. When troopers arrived, the back handle looked normal. The seal looked normal. They drew the latch anyway. Inside, a mattress, boxes, a chair with a rubber band twisted around one leg. No person, no animal, No answers. Mateo felt foolish enough to apologize to the trucker. The older man just nodded at the tree beyond the picnic tables and said, "Then who left those?" In the frost, prints curved from the van's rear bumper to the grass and disappeared into dark. Someone had been in the van or hanging on or riding the line between both. Mateo slept that dawn in a hotel with the chair braced under the knob and, in his pocket, a trucker's number written on a receipt in block letters. Third story starts on a desert highway, where two friends tried to ignore a pickup bathing their mirror in white. It wasn't the speed that scared them. It was, what a trooper, waiting by a truck stop sign, peeled from a shadowed seam under their bumper tonight. Third story belonged to Nora and Ben, crossing the high desert from Kingman to Phoenix after a friend's wedding. At 12:38 a.m., a white pickup slid up and filled their rental with light. When Nora signaled right to let it pass, it mirrored them, high beam steady, a square of pain in the mirror. They tried hazard taps and speed limit +5. No change. Ben gripped the wheel. Nora called 911 and said they wouldn't stop on the shoulder. The dispatcher, "Keep going to a lit area. There's a Love's at the next junction." Doors locked. The pickup surged, fell back, surged again, as if studying their fear in pulses. Under the truck stop canopy, diesel breathed and the air smelled like rubber. A state trooper idled by the ice machine, lights dark. The pickup circled and parked crooked by the air hose. The trooper knelt beside their plate, flashlight low. Tape residue caught the beam. With a gloved hand he peeled a matte square from the shadowed seam and held it by a corner without naming it. He only asked when they'd last stopped. Nora said a scenic pullout where a stranger offered to frame their photo with the stars. Another unit rolled behind the white pickup. The man inside turned his face from the lights. The trooper bagged the square, told Nora and Ben to wait with the engine running, then came back with a calm sentence that still rings in their ears. "You did the right thing not stopping on the shoulder." Later, when the road cooled a degree, Nora wrote that it wasn't the object that kept her awake. It was imagining the moment it met their bumper. Help and harm look the same until someone trained says which is which. Fourth story came from Deshawn, eastbound on I-40 through the Panhandle in a dented hatchback whose heater worked when it felt like it. Between towns at 2:11 a.m., a silver sedan poured light into his mirrors and sat there like a second tail. He blinked his brakes politely. The sedan flashed twice in a tight rhythm and slid up until its grille filled the mirror. He eased toward an off-ramp for a closed-over look. It matched. Then it whipped ahead, tucked in front so close he could see condensation beating its rear glass, and brake-checked hard enough to make his seatbelt catch. A second car appeared behind him, distant but bright. Deshawn said to himself out loud no and called 911. "I think they're trying to box me." The dispatcher told him to look for an open way station and keep to the center lane. A message board bright sign answered, "Way station open next right." The front sedan slowed as if to make the choice for him. Deshawn kept his speed, blinked right, and aimed for the gore where pavement widened. An 18-wheeler behind him laid on the horn like a wall. The second car hesitated. He cut into the station's blue-white light. A cruiser sat tucked behind a shed like a cat. The sedan drifted past the exit, slowed on the shoulder, then slid on. The cruiser rolled forward with a whoop and presence. By the time an officer walked to his window, the car had taken the next off-ramp into dark that doesn't leave paperwork. They watched his dashcam together and the officer asked the routine question. "Stop anywhere recently?" 5 minutes, Deshawn said, by a dark gas station with a burned-out sign. He'd seen moths and a soda can twitching in wind. No plates to run. No report to file. He drove on with his nerves lit like wiring the rest of the state. What scared him most wasn't the near collision. It was intention pressed into white. Not warning, not mistake. Pressure. Fifth story came from Priya, crossing 2 states in a minivan with her 4-year-old asleep. She stopped at a bright travel plaza at 12:22 a.m. for gas and a bathroom sprint, locked up, paid, and hustled back. 10 minutes later, a dark crossover settled behind her and began flashing high beams in short bursts. 2 beats, pause, 2 beats, as if it were trying to say a word. She assumed rudeness, raised the mirror, dropped a few miles per hour, and moved right. The crossover stayed with her. Priya turned the radio off and could hear her own breath. The flashing grew longer, then the car edged close enough that she could make out bug marks on its plate. She called 911. Take the next staff toll plaza, the dispatcher said, and stay on the line. The crossover followed into the lane, then swung wide and idled 2 bays back. A trooper waved her toward the office lights while another flagged the crossover. The driver was a woman not much older than Priya, 2 kids' seats in back. She spoke too fast, words stacked from 10 miles. I saw a guy at the last plaza open your sliding door while you were at the register. I thought you saw him, then you drove, and I didn't want to scare your kid and I didn't want to be wrong, so I flashed.
I'm sorry.
I should have called sooner. A trooper opened the back gently. The dome light showed the blanket, a small sneaker, and a floor mat bunched in a way Priya didn't leave it. On the second row belt, the latch was clicked into the socket without a person wearing it, strap pulled tight. Along the sliding door's track, fresh scuffs. Plaza cameras later caught only a hooded figure a lane away for 3 seconds. Then nothing. The other driver pressed a napkin with her number into Priya's palm and said, I hope I was the scariest part of your night. Priya waited inside until a third unit offered an escort. She wrote later that she still wakes sure she hears a seatbelt click in the dark. High beams speak in riddles. Choose light, choose company, and let the next exit be yours tonight.